everybody, it's Romania Black, and my strategy tonight is, well, if I'm dressed in beautiful, bright, fun colors, nothing bad will happen. I don't know whether I should laugh or cry. Because not only are we on season 5 of Bungo Stray Dogs, which has been just maybe the darkest thing I'm watching right now. And that's so weird to say because I'm watching Berserk and Monster at the same time. But here's my deal. You know, Berserk and Monster, you go in knowing that those shows are supposedly going to get dark. You go in first episode, you're like, oh, this is going to get dark. Gotcha. But Bungo Stray Dogs has always had this camp quality to it where you know that at the end of the day, even when things get dire, you're like, oh, well, they're going to wiggle their way out of it. It'll be okay. And then this season and season 4 come along and it's like, they're going to wiggle themselves out. It'll be okay. And you don't know. So it's like, what do we do? And it's the rule of 8, y'all. The rule of 8 is this episode. And I'm a little scared about Bungo Stray Dogs with the rule of 8. So basically it's the 8th episode of an 11 episode, only 11 episodes this season. I feel like we need more. We deserve more, but so this is definitely whatever happens in this episode, this is going to be the push into, we're in the final arc of the season at this point because you only have 8, 9, 10, and 11. You have 4 episodes. This is definitely the final arc of that season, whatever ends up happening. So I have no clue, y'all. I was feeling real good with episode 6. I was feeling real good. I was like, oh, we've turned things around. There's that campy Bungo Stray Dogness. And then last episode, finding out Chuya's a vampire and Kenji was knocked out by Techo. He could be a vampire by the time this episode starts. Teruko, I don't know how to read her. I'm like, girl, she's pretty loyal to Fukuchi, so I don't know if she's just going to betray Atsushi and them. And if she betrays Atsushi, then where's Rompo left with? It's just him and Poe. Him and Poe can go off to the Kokomos together and just read some books. I mean, ideally, Fukuchi getting stuck in Poe's novel seems like the best route to go, but that's a big gamble because we don't exactly know what he could do, and if you screw up, you're dead. So it's almost like you just want to stay away from Fukuchi altogether if you can help it, and until you figure out something to do, but And then Bram and Aya are together, and I'm like, I want them to stay safe, but I don't know. We haven't seen Fukuchi last episode, so he could be anywhere. We don't know about Jono. He's a vampire, supposedly, but we don't know about him. Techo, I just feel like this show's gonna do the biggest betrayal and have Jono turn Techo into a vampire, and it'd be the biggest thing. Like, we'll think that Jono's not a vampire, and then he turns out to be one. So I've got some questions I want to talk about before we dive into this episode, though, but I was like, well, I'll wear my outfit from work today, and it's all bright and colorful, so that means everything will be all right. No, probably not, but Stacy talked about how fuku in Japanese also means blessing, so double fuku instead of, we talked about fuku's meaning like F-U, it could also mean a double blessing, so irony of all ironies, which Fukuchi's been pretty blessed by his ability, and so has Fukuzawa, so there's that. Jenna Sheasley said, would Ongo betray the special division for Dazai's sake? Because last episode, he was willing to tell some white lies to get the new order, or the world order, the one order, safely delivered. So would he be willing to betray the special ops to save Dazai? My answer is yes. And I think Alexander Q pointed out in their comment why I believe that. And it's the fact that Ongo's been a spy. During the Dark Era, he was a spy. He was being a double agent already. This is like old hat for Ongo. Ongo's been a double agent like his entire career. So would Ongo betray the special ops to save Dazai? Absolutely. Like, he clearly doesn't like Dazai, you know, in some regards, but in the other fact, he really does like Dazai. And it's the trio of him, Oda, and Dazai together that they're kind of all like, they have a blood brother oath with one another. So yeah, I absolutely think that Ongo would betray the special ops to save Dazai. 100%. I think that even though Ongo would do that, he's principled enough where it would have to be justifiable. Like, Ongo's the type of person that he wants justification, and he'll do something if there is an ample reason for it. So if there's a benefit to helping Dazai, I think Ongo would be 100% for it, even if it meant betraying the special ops. So that's my answer to that question. I hope that helps. Sarah Linda asked if Dazai's powers could stop Chuya's vampirism. I don't think so. And the only reason I say that is because it's not Chuya's ability being the vampire. He's infected by someone else's ability. So I think that if Dazai touches Chuya, he'll stop Chuya's anti-gravity powers and potentially the powers of the god that's inside of him. But I don't think he can stop his vampirism because that's Braum's ability. It's sort of like back in the cannibalism arc. If Dazai could have stopped the cannibalism powers, why didn't they just take Fukuzawa to him to begin with? You know, why didn't they just find a way to either transport Fukuzawa to Dazai at the hospital or transport Dazai to Fukuzawa? Like, why didn't they do that? And he could have stopped the cannibalism ability before it killed him and Mori. So I don't think he can stop Chuya's vampire ability. I think he can only stop it if he touches Braum. But I'm all for Dazai getting over to Aya and touching Braum and getting that ability done. That'd be great. That'd make my blood pressure go down a lot if that could happen. But I don't know. And then Arjun had this big comment that was just like making me do this like constantly. Because they were talking about Chuya in the 15-year-old arc with Chuya. Anytime he puts his hands, and this coat doesn't have pockets, but anytime he puts his hands in his pockets, it's a sign of him like trying to like ground himself. Like the fan theory is it's him grounding himself, like he's uncomfortable or he feels like he's not in control, and so he's trying to ground himself. And the first time we see him in vampire mode, he's got his damn hands back in his pockets like he's trying to ground himself and get control over his body, which is terrifying and tragic, right? But not only that, like Fjordor has obtained a huge chess piece in obtaining Chuya, especially with him right there with him, because Chuya has some really crazy good powers, right? And even though Dazai can stop them, he probably can't stop the vampirism, so he's got to not get bit by him. And what if Sigma gets bit by him? So it's a whole big mess, right? And not only that, it sucks because Fjordor in basically Braum making Chuya a vampire, it takes away Chuya's humanity and control. And to add insult to injury, it pits him against the one person that kind of acknowledged his humanity. And so it's like just a double whammy. It's just, ugh. And then Argent shared this comment by Osamu Dazai that says, after being hurt by the world so much, they began to see the demons within humans. Without hiding it, though, they did it without hiding through trickery. They instead worked to explain it. Which basically means that because the world has been so cruel to them, because the world has been so cruel, they started to see the demons within humanity and see the bad in people. And instead of trying to hide that demon inside, they instead used to exploit it and see how they can work and express it. So I'm like, yep, that seems pretty apt for this arc, because we're definitely seeing the demons within humans and how it's problematic, and maybe we're just going to roll with it, basically. Like Nikolai and the others in Fjordor, we're just going to roll with it. But anyway, those are my comments that I've got for this episode. I'm terrified, and I don't know what to expect, so that's a fun time. But in any case, I want to thank everybody over on the Patreon tier and the philanthropy tier this week. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. The people on the philanthropy tier, they go above and beyond to help support me each month, and I am very, very grateful. So I'm grateful to all patrons and all YouTube individuals for supporting me. I can't thank you all enough, but a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier, to Anime Annie, to Tyrone, to Eric, to Sunspots, to Translucent Men, to Anna Legatus Goob, Matthew Palfinier, to Argent, to Nameless Monster, to Kiri, to Be Happy, to Alex Cornejo, to Dana, and to Edgar. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Well, I mean, it has been nearly 10 minutes. I'm sure everything is fine. This episode will be great, right? This episode will be like no big deal. Nothing is wrong. I'm going to turn on the subtitles and everything will probably be fine. I'm sure we won't have to worry about anything. But we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into this episode, and I'm just kittens and rainbows. Just go with that. Land of Inhuman Demons. I mean, kittens and rainbows. So we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it, Lars. Well, that wasn't as as horrifying as I thought it was going to be. It's still bad. It's still not good, Cotton, but it's not as horrifying as I thought it was going to be. So there's that for us. We still have 3 episodes left. So I hate that Akutagawa is caught up with Braum and with Aya. I mean, she was talking pretty loud inside that truck. And so it only seems natural. I was like, anytime characters decide to hide in places, I'm like, that's a terrible idea. You're going to be found. Especially like in a parking lot, which she's only 10 years old. She didn't know any better. But I was like, girl, I wouldn't hide in the truck. It just seems... We're going to talk about that whole sword business. I was like, wait a minute, what? We'll talk about the sword business and all the sexual innuendos that go with it, right? But man, I guess we need to line out where everybody is, because here's the thing. Bungo Stray Dogs is such a big ensemble cast. It's very easy to lose track of where people are and what is happening. So before we go through this episode, we probably need to line out as we go, where is everybody? What's everyone doing? Well, who knows, right? So over here in MIA land, where we've not seen them at all, like the last 2 seasons, or season and a half. No clue about Mori and Elise. No clue about them. I'm glad we're not seeing them, because usually if we see them, that's a bad idea. And I don't want to see Vampire Mori. No, thank you. Don't want to see them. Mori and Elise. Natsumi, we don't know where he is. Natsumi, where he be, don't know. And then the rest of the guild, we'll talk about Sans Fitz, Fitzgerald and Louisa. The guild, we don't know where they are. And then this Order of the Clock Tower. The Order of the Clock Tower. I'm going to imagine that if they're going to show up, it's going to be at the end of the season. Agatha Christie's going to pop in with everybody and be like, why have y'all done such horror? Why did I make her Southern? She's going to pop in and be like, well, bloody hell, what are y'all doing? Like all this. She's going to be like, oh, bollocks, you guys are just absolutely awful. And then, yeah. So the Order of the Clock Tower, having them come in, and then those are mainly the people we have no clue where they are. They're just there. We have no clue. They're just off wherever. No idea. We haven't seen them literally the entire season or before that, so who knows if they're ever going to show up. Not a big deal. But then absent kind of is a different deal. People who are absent that we don't know. Fitzgerald, no clue where he is. Fitzgerald and Louisa, we don't know where they are. The good thing about Louisa's ability is she can just camp out for days and nobody knows where she's at, right? But she has to be by herself, which means Fitzgerald having to keep himself occupied, which is problematic. What's he been doing? We don't know. We have not checked in on Yasano and Kunikita and Tanizaki. We don't know about those 3. Poe and Carl, we assume that they are somewhere, but we haven't seen them in a long time, right? We don't know about them. And then over here we've had Rampo. Rampo is trying to figure out what the hell's going on. We know he's in action. Ongo is in action with the division there. They're kind of all in the same boat, and Lucy kind of goes along with them. So they're all kind of over there. We don't know what Yosano and Kunikita are doing. I'm glad we don't see them, because that means they could be in trouble. Meanwhile, in Vampire Camp, over in Vampire Land, in Braum's world, we basically have all the Black Lizard that has been converted. Poor Tashihara, he's included in that. Akutagawa. And Akutagawa right now is with Aya and Braum. And the sword. Should we acknowledge the sword's a third party there too? Right? And all them. And then poor Chuya. Chuya is over here with Fyodor. And supposedly, they've drowned. Supposedly. Now, we'll talk about that when we get to that scene. Supposedly they have drowned, and they are no longer with us. And then meanwhile, old Fukuchi, like, where the heck is he? Fukuchi and Techo, talk about Techo and Kenji are passed out. And then we have Teruko, and we have Atsushi, which I'm a little bit concerned about, because we know Teruko tortures people, and she's tortured people in the past, so she's probably going to torture Atsushi. And then Jono, we assume, is maybe part of this crew, but that's the whole thing. The thing that weirds me out about Jono is you're using Octagawa and his powers. You're using Chuya and his powers. Jono is clearly a very strong, gifted ability user. If he's a vampire, why aren't you using him too? Like, get him in on the action. But they're not showing us if he's a vampire or not. So either it's going to be one of two things. Either it's going to be a big reveal that he's not a vampire and he somehow didn't get bit by Octagawa or changed, and that's going to be a big plot point. Or two, he did get turned into a vampire, and it's like, it's literally like Day of the Dead. He's going to show up, like the elevator doors are going to open and Jono's going to attack Techo or something, or Teruko or something, and that's going to be a deal. So I don't know. And then, oh yeah, and then we have Fukuzawa. He's in here too. Fukuzawa and Futon are in this mess too. So yeah, there's just a whole big ensemble. And then you have Dazai and Sigma. Dazai and Sigma. And you have Nikolai off by himself. And there we are. So it's just a big old mess. So as far as our concerns, go, Techo and Kenji, Octagawa, and Aya and Braum, Atsushi and Teruko, Chuya and Fyodor. It's like all these pairs. Sigma and Dazai. God, it's like every pair here. And then Jono. And Jono and Fukuchi, we've seen neither. Last time we saw Fukuchi was freaking out. And then literally everybody else in here. So, so these are the main concerns. My biggest concern right now is Aya and Braum, because if Atsushi gets a hold of Braum and takes it to Fukuchi, we're screwed. Game over. It's done. The one order is a problem. And so, but we need to get to that first. The whole thing with Teruko, I love Atsushi to pieces. I love him to pieces. But Atsushi is a naive summer bean. And the whole thing about Teruko, I did not trust her to begin with in this episode. The moment he turned his back to her, I'm like, she's going to betray you somehow. And so, as far as we know, she's going to torture him. She's going to torture for info. Now, as far as how that goes, Atsushi's been tortured before, and he's gone through a pretty shitty upbringing. So I'm curious. I mean, I could kind of maybe see this going in Atsushi's favor, because Teruko's used to torturing legit criminals who do have something to hide and are broken, whereas Atsushi doesn't have something to hide and isn't broken. I mean, he has been before, but not like in that respect. So I would be curious to see if, as she's trying to torture him, he ends up revealing information that would link her with him and maybe get her to relate to him, and maybe it would be hilarious to me if Atsushi, he's already wooed over one redhead in Lucy. If he ended up wooing over another redhead in Teruko, I would lose it. I'd be like, oh my god, Atsushi, you've won over all these redheads. Oh, speaking of which, Kyoka, what about her? I feel so bad leaving her out. Kyoka and her mentor. When I think of redheads, we haven't seen her at all, and her name has escaped me, and I feel so bad. But Kyoka's surrogate mom. Oh my god, I feel so bad not remembering her name, but she's been absent this whole season. But yeah, it would be hilarious to me if Atsushi ended up wooing Teruko over. She's got a thing for white-haired guys. First Fukuchi, now Atsushi. I mean, girl, I don't know exactly how old Teruko is, but, you know, maybe it's not robbing the cradle for you. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I just don't like the fact that, at least, if Atsushi's getting tortured by her, they're away from the vampires. Maybe. The vampire zombies still freak me out. I'm just like, at any moment they could turn you into an undead soldier, and I don't like that at all. That risk makes you very anxious the whole time. So they told Rompo to meet at this runway. Rompo, what we doing? So is Rompo going to show up and Atsushi's not going to be there, and then he's going to be like, what do I do? Is Poe coming with him? I mean, I think Rompo would not just show up by himself because he has no ability, and that would be very bad. But I don't know. And you know, the thing that makes it very scary is Fukuzawa knows not to underestimate Rampo, and that's the biggest problem, because a lot of times villains underestimate Rampo because he's not a gifted user, and that's where they make their mistake. But Fukuchi has been like, oh, I'm not making that mistake. I know he's dangerous. So that's a problem, right? I do like that Teruko basically wants to get every guy to give her a piggyback ride. That's really funny. But then the whole situation of Atsushi seeing through her ploy and it just turning out being a way that she wanted to like lure them away. I don't know. The whole Jono thing I'm like, I feel like it's such a big case of blue balls. Just tell us if Jono's a vampire or not, and let's get it over with. But they're dangling by a thread, making us not know if he is or not for sure. And then he probably will be, and it'll just be like, what do you want? So yeah, she's like, well, shucks. She didn't seem to turn him into an old man. She seemed to like make him a kid, right? Because yeah, it shows him getting smaller. Yeah, sleep child. So she makes him into a little kid again, which to get him to not be able to do anything. I'm like, awesome. Cool. Dang it. So meanwhile, we get back to this gibberish. Meanwhile, let me go back on here. Crunchyroll has not been my friend the last few days, but get past this OP. I thought that Kenji had been knocked out. I thought Kenji had been knocked out and that Techo was just going to leave him, but no, he woke him back up to get information out of him. And can we just acknowledge that the new phrase, it's not I love you, it's I didn't choose justice, I chose Jono. I'm like shipping it so hardcore. I'm like, yes, please, everyone misunderstands Jono. He's different and misunderstood. I just love Techo's like purity. Like Techo is so pure and honest in this moment, and he chooses to save Jono, which is, he chooses to go after the info on Jono. And then later he says, oh, I regret this decision. I should have, because I chose love, I am suffering and am going to die because I didn't choose justice. I chose love over justice. And for Kenji, the irony is that's exactly the type of person Kenji be like, no, you did that. You always choose love over justice. Yes. And they become best friendos. I want Techo and Kenji to become best friends after this. I feel like Techo just got won over by Kenji because Techo is such a pure-hearted, like, principled by the book character, and he's all for like this, he's like lawful good, and Kenji's just good. So it warmed my heart so much. But him just saying like, everyone misunderstands Jono, and now I have to find him and tell me where he is. He despises tyranny, protects the powerless despite what he says. It's like Techo sees through all of Jono's like tsundere-ness and sees how he really is. And I'm like, okay, if y'all aren't thinking that Techo and Jono are a ship at this point, did you even watch this episode? And I'm sure some people will be like, they're just platonic friends. And I'm like, okay, sure, Jan. We'll go with that. I'm not judging you, but okay. He's like, my correct course of action should be to go after that vampire. But I'm not. I'm choosing Jono over justice just for 5 minutes. I turn my attention not to justice, but to Jono. Not to justice, but to Jono is the new I love you. Oh, it's great. And the idea of this episode being called The Land of Inhuman Demons. So, Inhuman Demons, we have Braum, obviously, and how he's been considered. The interesting thing is, it's perception versus their own identity. So you have Braum, who is viewed as an inhuman demon, even though he was trying to protect his people in their castle when he was first killed. There's that. And then you have Kenji, who has this inhuman demon inside of him, like the powers of Mother Nature, what the fudge, inside of him, despite his appearance. And then you have, of course, Chuya, who has the inhuman demon inside of him. And you have Dazai. And Dazai supposedly letting Chuya die is this inhuman demon. it's just there's all different facets of it. You could go so many different routes with it, and then at the end you have Octagawa, who's possessed by this inhuman demon. It just, it's just basically this entire episode are filled with examples of these characters and their inner demons. So yeah, poor little baby Atsushi, little kid Atsushi, so cute, ridiculous. He doesn't look too different than he does now. But yeah, so yeah, obviously Teruko's gonna try torturing Atsushi for information. I'm hoping that doesn't go badly. I'm hoping that Atsushi turns that around when she realizes there's nothing for her to gain from doing that. And then poor Kenji and Techo, learning that Kenji has the power of Mother Nature within him is amazing. I freaking love it. It's such a great reveal because I was really worried that Kenji was going to become a vampire this episode. The animation of him like going bonkers and like turning and having his whole skin turn black with the eyes, it's very similar to Chuya. It's interesting. And then he's just this this presence. It's crazy. And just knocks him out. And it's almost like Kenji he's like the Hulk. He's always angry, but you just aren't supposed to anger him because he has the power to completely like wipe off the face. Like just took out an entire mountainside with his bare fist. No big deal. No big deal. And it was because he lost his childhood friend in the mudslide. The blue glowing eyes. I like that it's polar opposite of Chuya. Chuya's is red and Kenji's is blue. I love it. I love the fact that Kenji, our simple Kenji, who we just thought would swing around a stop sign and just be super strong. It's not just super strength. It's literally the freaking power of Mother Nature. Done. Love it. Absolutely here for it. I keep worrying that they're all going to turn into vampires. So I'm like, I really don't want Ketchup. I don't want Techo and Kenji. Oh my God, that's their couple's name is Ketchup. He's always hungry. I don't want Techo and Kenji to become vampires. So I'm hoping that they're just passed out and it's okay. A vampire's not going to come up and nibble on their arm or anything like that. I hope that's not the case, right? I hope that's not the case. I also like in the flashback how genuinely freaked out Atsushi looks. He's kind of like, oh God. He's like, oh no, he just doesn't get angry anymore. He just gets really hungry instead. He gets hangry. He wants a Snickers so he won't destroy the world. I'm like, cool. But it's interesting that Kenji's powers are kind of like Fukuchi's just a wee bit. There's amplification of strength, right? So Kenji could be a major player in this, which is naturally why I'm terrified for him. Every moment during the scene where Techo was sitting there and he said, kill me, and Kenji had the slate of granite hanging over his head, I kept thinking something bad was going to happen. I kept thinking, oh my God, as he's like hurling the piece of concrete over his head, there's going to be a vampire come up and bite him. When they put the hands together, Fukuchi's going to show up. Like, I kept waiting for something horrible to happen. Luckily it didn't, but that doesn't excuse them from something bad happening again. And I just like the idea that as Kenji gets up next to him, Techo's like, well, with a calm mind, I realize that it's my fault, just kill me. And then Kenji replies with, well, thinking it over with a calm mind, I have no reason to be angry with you. Let's go find your friend together. And I love that because that like speaks Techo's language where he's like, oh my God, you spared me to go help me find Jono. Like you understood my love and repaid it. And like clap back. And I feel like for Techo, that's going to acknowledge him because when he asks for Kenji's name, he's like, this is learning your name is the greatest accomplishment of my life. He's like, I've met someone who holds the same principles as me in mind and is just as good of a soul as me. I'm honored to know someone who's so pure like this and is so kind and compassionate. I feel like if they both wake up and they're not zombies, that they may have like an understanding and maybe it's a turning point. And the turning point is kindness, is not the cycle of violence, but the fact that Kenji didn't kill him. I love that. I think that's beautiful, right? I think that's beautiful. And so then, that leads to the idea of maybe if Atsushi is tortured by Teruko, then he'll get the same response out of her somehow. So that's my hope. I want Atsushi and Kenji to turn Techo and Teruko around. I'm just worried about what Fukuchi could do, and if Jono's a vampire, what effect that could have. Because it would really suck if Techo and Kenji like make friends and they're all good, and then suddenly Techo gets turned into a vampire by Jono. I'm just saying. So then we have this whole deal with Dazai and Sigma. I still don't know why Dazai chose Sigma. I mean, it makes sense because Sigma, you know, is part of this entire equation. So he's not as disposable to Fjordor. There is need for Fjordor to have for him, whereas the other items Fjordor doesn't need. So Dazai wouldn't do any good taking any of those. But when Dazai's like, I've been thinking of ways to kill Chuya every day for the past 7 years, I'm like, bullshit you have. Bullshit you have. No, you haven't. You liar. You big ball of lies. You sit on a throne of lies, sir. And he says, I have an angel coming with me. Which I do like the idea of Ongo as the angel and Chuya as the devil. But the thing about it is, Dazai's been known to love the devils and the sinners. So, come on, show. Come on. I do agree. Whenever Dazai calls out, whenever he calls out Sigma as being like Atsushi, dead on. They're very similar characters. I don't know what Sigma's role in this story is yet. I don't know exactly why Dazai's brought him with him, what he's going to do. But it's interesting that Sigma's seeing all of this and being like, what the hell am I getting into? Also, yeah, okay, I was wrong. Chuya does not have his hands in his pocket this time around. It's on the outside. It just looked like it because his pants and gloves are the same size. And so then Sigma figures out, okay, well, you've been delivering information to Ongo, but how has Ongo been getting it back? And then the idea of Sigma wanting to best Fjordor is hilarious. And he's like, just tell me. And he's like, I'll show you instead. So yeah, I honestly don't know what Fjordor was thinking with Chuya. Like, Chuya can't, Nikolai explained as they were taking the lethal injection that it's an anti-gifted, like, wall. They're not going to get out of there. So how did Fjordor think he was going to? Like, what did he even think was going to happen? It seems too easy, right? First of all, it seems too easy. There's no way they just killed Fjordor like that. There's no way. I don't believe it for a second. I don't believe the mangaka would randomly kill off Chuya by drowning him, and that's it. They gave us the moment where Dazai feels bad. You know Dazai feels bad about the drowning. You know he does. But Chuya's still a vampire. If Akutagawa can live through having his neck slit, Chuya will be fine. He's just gonna be like Sonic underwater, just little bubbles bubbling up. Yeah, no. I did find it sympathetic that, and it was a really good scene with Dazai having the montage because we'll get to that. We might as well just get to that because they get to the security room and go from there. I do love the idea of the woman that has been locked up there. I love the idea that Dazai has done his homework and used Ongo to figure out, hey, this is like Suicide Squad. It's a jail cell of all these highly gifted ability users that are very dangerous, but could be persuaded with the right bribery. So Ongo, do your magic, bribe this lady to get her a shorter sentence if she uses her ability, and buy me some time to go kill these guards. Now, obviously, how did Dazai get out of the cell and get back? We don't know. We don't know yet. That's not been revealed to us. Did Fjordor notice anything? Did he notice Dazai leaving the cell? We don't know. I feel like it's too easy right now. There's no way that Fjordor just died now, along with Chuya, and it's not made a bigger deal. No way. I don't think so. Now, the question is, do we think Nikolai helped them? Do we think Nikolai helped them escape? What do we think happened, right? What's the deal? Because even though, the thing of it is, even though Nikolai wants Fjordor dead, it feels like he wants him dead on his terms. So do we think that he would not be satisfied with this being the end of Fjordor and would rescue him? We saw the hat float up, but we didn't necessarily see their bodies floating around drowning. So do we think Nikolai used his ability to save them? And Dazai and them are going to discover that next episode? We've got 3 episodes left. I mean, it's very possible, right? I do love the cat thief's design. Love it. It looks very Catwoman. It's great. And so then I alone can move when time stops. I like that caveat too, that Dazai's ability allows him to move when others can't. That's a really cool ability. So the question is, what else has he been doing? Like, what else has Dazai done? What else has he been doing while time has stopped? Yep. He's like, how do you feel about your imminent drowning? I love it. He's like, you can't kill me. How will you escape? Will you use your powers? But he's like, I doubt it would do much good here. It's not the kind of get out of this situation. And then as soon as Sigma said he's going to win, I'm like, no, the mangaka's not going to make it this easy. I don't think so. It's not going to be this easy. He's going to take out 2 superhumans single-handedly. And then he goes on this thing about Chuya saying it'd been 7 years. We never did get along, did we? And I'm like, oh, come on now. And he says, but, and we see like all of this stuff playing in his head. He's like, come to think of it now that there were times we understood each other. Yeah, I'm like, of course there have been, right? And he's thinking about everything like with them in the flashback, the movie, all of that. They did understand each other. So what? And he looks down at the screen and there's just like at him drowning. But Dazai doesn't say anything. He's like, oh, sorry, I couldn't think of anything. Bye. I'm like, I feel like they got out somehow. I don't know. I think it's too easy. I think it's a big red herring to make us think that Chuya's drowned. I'm like, there's no way Dazai would let him drown. No. I mean, incapacitate him, sure, because he's a vampire and he's dangerous. Incapacitate him, sure, but really die? And Fjordor's not going to go down that quietly, so it's like, I don't know, y'all. I'm not fooled. I don't think it's it. I don't think that's it. No, I don't think so. No. I am a little bit worried, though, because if Dazai's wanting the antidote, then what do we do with Nikolai? And is Nikolai actually going to give him the antidote? That's what I'm fearful for, too, because Nikolai is batshit crazy. And here's the thing. He's a yandere. And I know he wants Fjordor dead, but I do think that in some regards, Nikolai wants to kill Fjordor with his own hands and like lick his face while he's doing it because he loves him. So I just can't see Nikolai letting Fjordor just drown in a random room. I just don't see it. I think that he says that he would, but in the end, would he really? I don't know. And then poor Aya and Braum. She's like, we just sit here and wait. And he's like, what? Now, I like that the image of Dazai tells him to wake up, but he's like strapped to this table. It feels very Yasano-like. I don't like where this is headed with that sushi. And then Brachan, he's like, foolish peasant. Break this seal, and I, the demon incarnate, will free to rule this world of darkness. I'm like, uh-huh. I was like, would Braum really rule the world with darkness, or is he just saying that to her and then he'd like run off? I want Braum and Aya to run off and have a farm together. Have Kenji working on it. It'd be great. Kunikita could visit. It'd be great. So, the sword was formerly a human! Okay! I love it. She's like, what? He's like, hundreds of years ago, a gifted died, and their flesh was turned into metal by their ability. So they're dead. So it's just a dead person's body that's become this sword. That's slightly a relief. So basically, this gifted user, they died, and then became this sword. And it was embedded into Braum. Like, it's kind of interesting because this person, in becoming a sword, it's sort of like they became immortal too, right? Their ability carries on even in death to merge. It's the ability to merge flesh with ability. Ah. So, and she's like, what? She's like, flesh and ability? He's like, indeed. They exist on 2 different planes, and his ability was a means to connect them. So basically, the ability, it's like an ability stacked upon an ability. So now the ability merged flesh with ability. So his ability to become a sword, to become metal, fused into this sword, and now it's fused into the flesh of Braum. So it's like just enhancing it. Just like it's like a cure. It just keeps molding and developing and mutating. Although I mentioned Mudazushi because there's a sword called Bishin that has a consciousness, and it was, you know, stuck up somebody's butt. But it was alive and conscious. Luckily, this sword is of a dead person, so they're not feeling being up inside Braum. Asagiri, why? You didn't have to go this route. You could have just made it an enchanted sword, but instead you made it a person, and you made me have dirty thoughts. How dare you, Asagiri? But I guess it is bad because it allows the special ability to be controlled as though it's part of the body. That's what I'm impaled upon. So the tip of the sword has grown roots in my brain. So that's the problem. Like, if you rip out the sword, you're going to rip out part of Braum's brain. Now, he's immortal, so he probably won't die, but still, that's not promising, right? But because it's connected to his brain, that's how the hand that wields the sword is imprinted with a holy seal. And that's how the seal is now in Fukuchi's palm. So only thus he alone can use my power. Well, but is there only one seal that can be used? Can anybody that grabbed the sword get the seal in their hands? Can that not be the case? Does it have to be one seal at a time? I'm like, what if Aya grabs the sword? Will she get like a seal imprinted on her hand and then she can wield it? I mean, does Braum have any control over it? It would be cool if Braum gave Aya permission. And it would be cool if Aya's like, why can't the sword give me permission to be its wielder? And Braum's like, I mean, are you old enough to use a loom? Can you wield the sword? I would love Aya to wield the sword. I would freaking love that. I would love if she could wield the sword. That would be great. But instead, and then we have this moment here. He's like, this is the second time I've been impaled by this sword. So the first time it shows the sword like going through his like eye and he has an arrow through it, right? And going through his neck. Now he was impaled with it before and got out of it. So who's to say that it can't happen again, right? Who's to say? Because he had the sword stuck in his neck the first time. And he said, punish the enemy of God. And there's all these like crusaders. And he says, please spare the people. Spare my subjects. Because he's a count. So again, Braum originally was trying to save his people. And they judged him because they called him a demon. Because of, you know, his ability. And poor Aya, she's like, why do you look so sad? And he says, it's nothing. A vassal needs not know the Lord. Know the turmoil within a lord. I just want them both to be safe. He's like, though, since you can carry me, perhaps you're not a vassal, but a horse. And she's like, I hate you. And then he's like, oh, she's like, oh, is this how the people of this time pay respects to a king? Oh my God. It sure must be empowering to be so oblivious. And then poor Octagawa shows up. Like, we were having a great moment. We were having a great time. A good time. And then Braum tells her to run. But, like, it's so sad. Because I'm like, there's no way she can outrun this. And I don't want Octagawa to attack her. Why? Damn it. No. So I think I'm most worried right now about Octagawa and Aya and Braum. I'm most worried about them. Atsushi being tortured is worrisome, for sure. I do not think Fyodor and Chuya are dead. I do not think they are out of commission. Things are going too well for Dazai. I don't know. It seems too easy, and I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't believe Asagiri for a second that it's going to be so easy for them to get out. No. And poor Sigma, he just doesn't even know. We haven't seen Fukuchi in a couple episodes. That's problematic to me. We don't know what's happened to Jono. We don't know where half these characters on the board are. We only have 3 episodes left. I just don't know, y'all. The rule of 8 did not let us down, though. I was really glad to have the Aya and Braum moments because, to be honest, we needed it. I was like, I need Aya and Braum moments to, like, give some levity to this, but I don't know. I'm gonna be excited to read the manga to get to these chapters because they were this episode felt kind of hodgepodge together, like they were just like, it was like condensed, and I just get the feeling there's more to the manga with it. The scene with Dazai reminiscing about Chuya and him feels like it was a big double spread, like it was a montage behind him. I don't know. It just didn't resonate with me as it being a really, really sad moment because I was like, this seems too easy. There's no way he's just going to kill Chuya and that's it, right? It just didn't feel that way. I don't know what to do about that, but I don't know. Could Dazai, like, suspend time using the Catgirl's powers and, like, go save Chuya from drowning, and they, like, make out underwater or something, and maybe if his ability can cancel out the vampirism, that's what happens? I don't know. And then Fjordar's, like, floating around being like, in my salad, like, Chuya making out. I wish. But I don't know, y'all. I don't know what to do with it, so, I don't know. I think it's too easy. I don't think Chuya's dead. If he's dead, that was like the most anticlimactic death. He just drowns, and Dazai has like a 5-second montage and is like, I'll miss you. Not really. And that's it. I don't know. But I'm nervous now. Been nervous all season. But I'm very excited to see what's going to happen for episode 9. We only have 3 episodes left, and I'm like, show, you're going to leave us on a bad note, aren't you? But we'll see. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back very soon with more Bungo Stray Dogs.